Hello, everyone, and welcome to another small screen Star Wars. As always, I am Julian Musha. I'm joined by Rachel Wilkinson.
Hello, everybody.
That was the cue.
That was the cue.
That
Okay,
was
he
the
told me I
cue,
wasn't
yeah.
allowed to talk until he gave me the cue.
Yeah. It's a technical thing. It's stuff that the computer you wouldn't understand.
I wouldn't understand. You're correct.
We are here to talk about the latest in small Star Wars on the small screen, but actually, twist. We're going to be talking about Star Wars on the big screen today.
Yeah, which we will still cover, even though
yes,
the podcast name is Small Screen Star Wars.
Yeah, but I feel like, again, given when the show was launched, which was like right before the no, that's not true. The very first Disney. That's true. What am I thinking of? It was the Clone Wars season 6, right?
Yeah, the last season of Clone Wars.
Yeah, which led into Mando was not short after that, season 1.
Yes,
and so
correct.
It made sense. And to be fair, with the exception of I think Rise of Skywalker, there has not been a single Star Wars movie for this to even be a problem. So
that would be correct, I guess. Yeah.
So it has yet to be an issue. There may be a day in the future where it's only movies again and no shows. But for now, that's not the case.
For now, we're safe.
Yeah, we're good. Breaking news, obviously, like the big story is around this THR report that I wouldn't say like cuts into Star Wars, but like it certainly includes a lot of pretty damning quotes. And I think if you've been listening to this show for a while, you know that one of our more recent episodes was our State of Star Wars podcast, which was pretty damning. The state was bad. Turns out not much has changed. I don't want this to be like what's the opposite of a love-in? Like a hate fest? It's not that.
A hate fest?
Yeah. It's not going to be that. I think it's just more like just a peek and to say like, what's going on? You know, like something's not right over there, and we'll talk about that. But before we do that, we'll lighten the mood with a little bit of Star Wars news. And that should be a fun time. Before we get into any of that, just a couple bits of housekeeping. Blue Sky is blowing up. I don't know if you saw this, Rachel, but they added over 1 million people just yesterday alone.
Yeah,
1.5 million
I
people.
was one of them.
Well, you weren't yet. You were 2 days ago. You beat the big rush.
I beat the rush. Look at that.
That's right.
Head of the pack.
Uh-huh.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, Blue Sky used to be invite only, correct?
It was actually. I had an invite to Blue Sky, and I wasn't using it. I had an account. I've had an account on Blue Sky for a while, like
okay,
almost a year, and it's for whatever reason my brain is addicted to Twitter, but or X as it's known, and I hate it. I hate it. It's so toxic in there.
It's so bad.
Time I open up any thread, it's just a bunch of people like telling people that they're a bitch and they should go die, or they should
literally though
just go please cry more, all that kind of stuff.
Bad.
It's just nonstop, and it's like I feel like it's polluted with bots. Like I'm pretty sure. So
that too. There's just like I feel like every time I scroll, it's like a new ad and another ad. Like it's like I don't know.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. Temu ads that I get on there is like crazy. It's wild.
Oh yeah, the ads are maybe some of the worst part. Like it's constant like scam, like ads for scams, which is like
that too.
Extra crazy. Like I know that they're desperate for advertising, but
absolutely,
that's nuts. It's really bad. If you're into porn, there's lots on there though. If you're into that,
into porn.
Anyway, so
I guess so. Yeah.
Lots of people, for I'm sure obvious reasons, but maybe less obvious that, as we just mentioned, are leaving Twitter/X. And they're migrating over to Blue Sky. And I've got, I guess maybe I was waiting for some moment like this to really get more engaged because, I really use Twitter for two main purposes. Watching sports and engaging with other sports fans live during a game.
Okay.
Right? Very important. It's very fun. But there hasn't been enough of that on Blue Sky. But now I think that is not the case. Most of the reporters and people that I usually follow on that stuff anyway are there now. So it's not bad. Pretty good, in fact, I would say.
Yeah.
The other thing I use it for is news. I keep track of like Culture Crave and discussing film and all those things that give me, I screenshot, here's a little peek behind the curtain, I screenshot them. And then I use that screenshot album on my phone as a like library of all the news over the last little bit. And that's what I did to build the notes for today.
Smart.
So again, all those accounts have moved over or have a presence on Blue Sky. And again, it's important to reiterate, it is a much nicer community over there, at least for now. At least for now.
I know. It feels nice for now, but I feel like their whole plan in general is to keep things, chill over there. Like Blue Sky
seems
to really
chill.
want
I feel like we got to stay chill. That's it. Like,
And
Twitter used
like
to
if you're
be
not
like
gonna.
That. That's why I like.
If you're gonna be hateful and crazy, get out of here.
Yeah, well, the block function works because remember, Twitter is going to be like, we're changing how blocks work, so you can block people, but you still have to see their posts. It's like, well, then
what the fuck? What's the point of that?
Yeah, exactly. So, because Elon Musk was upset that people were blocking him and couldn't see his stuff that he was putting out. I'm serious. That is a major factor. Anyway, shit's crazy, and it's just a little nicer, a little bit smoother on the brain to be over at Blue Sky. So that's a long way of saying that we are over there. The show is over there. You can find. In fact, you can. One of the cool things that you can do, Rachel. I'm working on this for us.
Okay.
Is you can verify your handle against your own domain. So, like, we have the towerbabble.ca domain for our website.
Yeah.
So I can validate. I've actually already done this for the main show. I validated the Tower Babble podcast account on Blue Sky with our own domain. So it's like it looks very official.
Yeah.
So you can search on Blue Sky. You can search for Tower of Babel podcast or at towerofbabel.ca and you'll find us. I'm on at least one of, I managed to get on at least one of the starter packs, which is another thing that I really like about Blue Sky is these like lists that you can automatically subscribe to a bunch of people at once. So you can kind of
cool.
curate your followers really quickly.
Yeah.
And people do that. So I'm on at least one of those and we've been slowly adding followers. We're at 102 followers right now as of this moment.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
And so I'd encourage you if you were a Twitter person, I know that again, if you've been listening to the show for a long time, you know that I've been on a proponent of posting on there and engaging on there. But as I mentioned, Twitter is less good. So I'm probably going to step back a little bit from that. Obviously the accounts will remain there as placeholders. I might every once in a while forget which app I'm in and start posting on the wrong thing. But but that is
do our best to try to post post Blue Sky first and whatnot.
Yeah, so come over there, join us over there. It's going to be a fun time. My personal account's on there too. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. So
I'll try and find you.
Yeah. But again, that's mostly for sports, okay? Or maybe a little bit of news. So that's the fun bit of this, or I guess most fun because it feels new and fresh and exciting. The other thing is if you're like, well, I like to be a part of a Tower Babble podcast community, and I guess the other thing is if you're listening to this and you're new, coming from Blue Sky, and you're like, oh, I want to check out this podcast. Awesome, let us know. You can email me, towerbabblepodcast@gmail.com, or you can DM me on, I don't know if there's DMs on Blue Sky, but if there are, you can DM me there or just send me a note, reply. Really cool. Would love to know about that. But you also may be wondering, wait a minute, I thought this was called the Tower of Babel podcast. Well, you're not wrong. We have 2 shows on this network as of right now. We had a variety of different shows over in the past. But so we have the main show, the Tower of Babel podcast. We cover kind of a more generic film and television gamut. We also, Rachel and I, have Small Screen Star Wars, which again, we mentioned earlier, we've been doing since Clone Wars Season 6. And we've covered every episode of every Star Wars show since then.
Yes, we have.
And it's been a lot of fun, a lot of work, but it's been fun. So if you're looking for more of that, it'll be on this feed. We have a separate Small Screen Star Wars feed if you prefer to just focus on that. You can find that on any of the Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any of that stuff. We'll be covering the Skeleton Crew. Skeleton Crew is in December, if I'm not.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay. So we'll be doing that next month. So stay tuned for that. It's exciting. If you want to help support the show, and I think this is very important, this is where I kind of started, which was if you want to be a part of a Tower of Babel podcast community, but you feel like social media is not really your thing, I understand. There's a better way. You can join our Patreon, which is a much smaller but intimate, I like to say, but not in that way. Don't be gross. Community on our Discord, but to do that you have to be a subscriber to our Patreon. So head over to patreon.com/TowerBabbleCast. $5 a month gets you access to our bonus film club episodes, which we do exclusive for patrons every month. Last month we did The Lost Boys, and I will say it is a very fun movie. I love a 90-minute movie too. It's like in and out. It's not wasting your time. It's very much, it's very 80s. It's super 80s. It's like
As
80s on
hope,
steroids.
but...
Yeah, it's crazy. The hair, everything, like the music, everything. So you can find that. There's plus a whole back catalog of who knows how many of them by now. And that's all, again, on the Patreon. Of course, you can plug that into your regular podcast player, and it'll just shoot those episodes out when they come available. And, of course, again, access to the Discord. Okay, that's enough promoing for now. We've got lots of Star Wars to talk about, so let's get into it. Let's start with a little bit of a rundown of the latest in Star Wars news. How's that sound, Rachel?
That sounds great.
I should mention, actually, before I get too deep into this, I am on the road. I'm still in Costa Rica, but it's been raining like every day for almost 2 weeks straight. There's a tropical storm, really big storm.
Is it
over on the
rainy season?
Yes, it's technically rainy season, but it's not supposed to be this rainy. There's flooding in some of the low-lying areas and stuff. It's not great. The sun was poking up before I started recording, so hopefully I can get some pool time today, but we'll see. But that also maybe explains why the background's different. The audio might sound slightly different, but I'm hoping to kind of build up a studio here in a way that'll be, I think, as good or maybe even better. Who knows? To what we have back home. How was Winnipeg, by the way? Is it cold yet?
No, it's still really nice out. No snow. It's
that.
wild.
Damn it.
It's like +5 today or something, or +10.
Oh, man.
It's weird.
Okay, well, I'm missing the best season, so that sucks. But oh well.
For
rain.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. My husband was able to rollerblade to work today, so, that's a weird thing for this late in November.
Yeah, well, it's a weird thing any time of year, but yeah.
I know, he's a weird dude.
It's funny.
Love him, though.
Yeah, I'm just bugging you.
Probably the only guy you could see in Winnipeg rollerblading at this time of year.
Yeah, so. Yeah, 100%. Okay, let's get into the news. I wish I had a little bumper or musical cue. One day I'll get off my ass and make myself one of those. But
you have the gonk droid noise.
Do you want me to play it? Yeah, let's play that.
No, I don't. It's
so loud. Okay, well, you know what? It needs to be played every once in a while. Here we go. It's not that bad.
Actually, that wasn't as loud today.
I turned it down. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's like that didn't blow out my eardrums like it normally does.
Well, I've improved the technology stack that we use here. So,
there we go.
I wish Zencaster had a little bit of a better, soundboard system. They've improved all sorts of things, including stability, which is nice, but they don't have a great soundboard system, which is a small, minor gripe. They're very concentrated on leveraging AI to upsell their other services, which are expensive and, to be honest, not needed or important. Okay, so Star Wars catch up, gonk gonk. All right, so let's start with something fun. We haven't recorded since. I'm having a flashback to after the show, but the Empire Strikes Back in concert, which we saw. How long ago was that? That was 2 months ago-ish, I want to say.
About, yeah. I think so, yeah.
So we don't have to get into this too much, but I think I talked about this last year when I saw A New Hope in concert. So we have our own local orchestra here in Winnipeg, and they're pretty great. I'm not going to lie. I do love the orchestra. Yeah, they are very good. And they have been, and I think it's smart of them, they're really leaning on the movie stuff because they want to bring in their crowd. Their normal crowd is getting very old and dying. No. So they're trying to bring in a younger audience, and I understand it. Yeah. I get it. And it's working because the Star Wars shows are like generally sold out and very busy and like a
they're
great
packed.
time. The
Yeah,
crowd
they do the
is really
Harry
into
Potter
it.
ones too.
Yeah, and they did a couple. Like
And
they
those
did
ones,
Princess Bride.
yeah.
What
Princess
else?
Bride. Though they're doing that one, I think that one's in December. Actually, it's in a couple weeks.
Okay, that's cool. That's a
Yeah,
good movie.
it is a
Um,
very good movie.
they have that. I think they do some silent movies, like they did Bram Stoker. I think for Halloween they did Bram Stoker's Dracula and a few other
Oh,
things.
cool,
So
cool.
it's in the Burt too, which is like a very like gothic and
Ooh,
spooky
spooky. Yeah.
venue. Anyway, that's all to say that we went to see Empire Strikes Back, arguably the best Star Wars movie. I could argue that it's maybe even Episode 8, but that's for a different day. But very great movie.
So good.
Any just like thing that jumped? I mean, I know it's been a while, but anything that
I
like jumps
know.
out of you as like that was different, surprising about
Well,
that?
I remember telling you that it was because I have never seen, obviously, the original trilogy in concert at all, or
Right.
in
In a theater.
person on the big screen in a
Yeah.
theater. Yeah. So it was very cool for me to be fully immersed in it because I feel like when you have it on at home, there's distractions, right? Your
Well,
phone, whatever,
yeah.
you're doing other things. You're not just like sitting and focusing. So I feel like I never got the experience of actually getting to sit and like fully just watch. So there's lots of just like little things that I picked up on that maybe I hadn't noticed before. Like there's a point where I think it's like Luke gives Chewie like ear scritches and like gives
Yeah.
him a little scratch. I was like, oh, that was so cute. I've never like noticed that before. Just like little things. So I had a really great time. I really liked getting to be fully immersed and obviously with the live music too. It's fun and getting to hang out in a crowd that's all there for the same reason. They're all Star Wars people. Everyone's cheering for their favorite characters and favorite scenes.
It's true.
It was really, really cool. And I'm excited because I'm going to, in January, Return of the Jedi. I get to go see.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I'm excited.
I need to get tickets for that because I need to make the trilogy complete.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, you got to do all three because, yeah, I'm going with my in-laws and my husband. So.
Yeah, that's nice. I know he was upset when we went to Empire. He's like, "Well, I don't want it to go."
A little bit.
Yeah,
I know, but he got to go to A New Hope without me because I was watching
so
the baby.
now you're even.
So yeah, now we're even. That's kind of why I said I was like, but I want to go. You have to watch the baby this time.
Yeah, that's fair. And like, so a couple things for me. If I can be a little bit grouchier, the cheering does get a little old. I feel like pretty quick for me because it's like I want to hear the music and like but I will cheer for like really good music. So when
Yes, yeah,
the Imperial March comes on because the Imperial March doesn't
hear
appear.
That was like goosebumps.
Yeah, it doesn't appear until Empire. It's not in New Hope, and so you getting to hear that for the first time in concert was pretty cool.
Very cool.
The other thing, it's nice to have the subtitles up on the screen too, because the music's quite loud, which it should be, because it should be the focus of the event. But it's so powerful to hear the music that way. Like when you hear Leia's theme, I think is particularly effective live. Yoda's theme. But I always forget how hilarious Empire. It's so funny. There's so many hilarious, sometimes intentional, sometimes unintentional moments that are just genuinely hilarious. And I always forget that because I always think, oh, that's the dark one. That's the one where the Empire wins, yada, yada, yada. But it's like chock-a-block with humor, like constantly. And I think people need to go back and rewatch these movies and look at like the tone, what tone these movies are striking, and then contrasting it with some of the more modern stuff. And I think the modern stuff has been very good actually at hitting that tone. But I'm wondering if the audience is like rejecting it, feeling like they're just not, they don't want that anymore, or it's not hitting in the same way. I don't know. We'll talk about it as we get into the deeper stuff. But realistically, like a lot of the stuff that people complain about now in Star Wars has always been there. And I think it just would behoove some people to go back and like watch it again and be like, you don't remember when Vader was cracking jokes, so like, come on. All right, so that's Empire Strikes Back in concert. Let's move on here. The next most important thing in Star Wars is Andor, obviously. So season 2, we have a date. It's going to be coming out April 22nd, 2025. So spring of next year. Very excited about that. It now has a new subtitle. It has a Star Wars story subtitle, which it didn't have in season 1. Obviously, Rogue One, which is Andor's a prequel to Rogue One, which is of course a prequel to A New Hope, has that same subtitle. They never used it. They have not. I don't think, did they use it for Solo? Is Solo a Star Wars story?
I was gonna say, I feel like Solo had it.
Okay, maybe that one has it too. But it hasn't been used a lot. So anyway,
no.
Maybe Acolyte, a Star Wars story, should have been its title. Maybe more people would have been nice to it if that was the case.
Maybe.
Anyway, so that's coming up
probably
next
not.
spring. Yeah, probably not. People are mean. We got a little bit of new footage as a part of like this Disney Plus sizzle reel.
I did not see that.
It's pretty brief. It's like a couple seconds.
Okay.
We get to see K2SO is back.
Mm-hmm.
K2SO obviously played by Alan Tudyk. He's in Rogue One, a standout character, one might say, droid character in Rogue One. So really excited to see how that works. And we do have confirmation that the season will take place over 4 years, and each 3 episodes will be 1 year, or it'll skip ahead 1 year after each 3. Because if you remember the first one, it was basically each 3 episodes was its own contained story arc. So it'll be similar to that.
Yeah.
But again, in much larger time jumps to catch us up to the events of Rogue One.
I'm so excited.
Me too. I think about Andor and I think, wow, what a miracle. It's like, why is it so hard to create good serialized television today? And there's a lot of problems in Hollywood. So I don't know. Have you been paying attention to this Penguin show on HBO?
No, I've been wanting to watch it, but I don't have HBO, so.
Fair enough. Anyway,
because that's on Crave, right?
It's on Crave, yeah. Crave
okay,
plus
yeah,
HBO,
I can.
Which is $20.
You know what's weird? Oh, I have to get the HBO thing on top of Crave?
Yes.
That's annoying.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, because here's a weird anecdote about Crave. So my phone provider gave me free access to Crave for whatever weird reason. Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. I go into it on my PS5 because that's how we watch anything at my house. And I can't use it because the PS5 app, I guess, of Crave doesn't have ads on it, and the free version has ads.
That's such
so I
bullshit.
Can't use my PS5 to watch it.
Every time I find out something new about Crave, it gets worse every time.
Yeah,
it is.
So it's like cool. So I can only watch it on my phone. Like that's fucking bullshit.
Can you cast to your TV?
I can, but that is in the other, that's in our other room, because there's no TV in my kids' room, and that's where my Apple TV is. So
I'm so angry at that.
But I mean, I couldn't watch it anyway. I guess. Anyway, I have to get there's
a will, there's a way. Okay, yeah. I recommend seeing it. It's very good. It was the best show on TV. Yeah. It just wrapped up last week.
So, but from what I was seeing, that people are shitting on it, right?
Well,
on the internet.
I've seen some. I saw IGN gave it a 5 out of 10. I think that's very harsh, but I've seen mixed reviews. But most of the people that I follow have really enjoyed it.
Right. Yeah.
One of the things that I think they did really well is that they hired an actual showrunner. So. Showrunners kind of like the head honcho of a TV show. They're not the director. There's usually different directors. Showrunners can also be directors, but it's not always that case. They're kind of like the god of a show. They make all the major decisions about storytelling and characters. They usually write the Bible, which is the story Bible.
Yeah, isn't that kind of like Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau? Aren't they usually the showrunners for the things for their projects? But then they have other directors come in.
Yeah. Yes, but. Historically speaking, Disney, both on the Marvel side and on the Lucasfilm side, have not used the traditional television production system that has a showrunner.
Oh, okay.
So they have it more producer-driven, which is where you get the Kathleen Kennedy, Luke, and the Dave Filoni stuff.
I see. Okay.
Dave Filoni, of course, he's the head creative director, I think, right? So it's a little bit different,
right.
But that traditional showrunner strategy, which gives a lot of artistic control to that individual, allows for a more, I'm not saying auteur, I'm not saying a showrunner is necessarily an auteur, but it's that same idea that you get that more focused style of storytelling, and it's less producer notes and crap.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's how you get more like traditional television back when we had like 15 episode seasons. And I've been watching Justified. I just finished season 4. And it's so good. Timothy Olyphant, who of course we know from Mando, is so cool. It's so badass. It's basically a Western set in modern day Kentucky.
Okay.
And
gotcha.
it's a cop show, but it's like more, it's really good. Walter Goggins.
He's like a sheriff, right?
He's a,
right?
no, well, yeah, he's a,
no,
what the hell is it? Maybe
Deputy?
he's a sheriff. He's a, yeah, he's from the sheriff. He's a sheriff. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, correct. I don't know why I blanked on that, but yeah. Anyway, I'm just saying, like, and so that has 15 episode seasons, right? And the way that show is structured is not structured into arcs in the same way, but there are through lines that go throughout the entire season, interconnect in a satisfying way, and then usually wrap up in a satisfying way at the end of each season.
Okay.
Andor had something similar where they were doing, long story threads through the entire season, and then in these individual story arcs. These are things that you can do when you have creative control. Marvel Television especially has been really bad at this. The most recent Agatha All Along WandaVision sequel spinoff has a traditional showrunner, and you can tell in the story structure that it has that more traditional methodology, and it is better for it. So that is a long way.
I thought people are really enjoying it, but
it's very much a lesbian witch show, which is fine. But
nice.
And I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It might not be for everybody.
Yeah, I need to watch it, but
I will. But at least it's focused in its like it has a core idea that it wants to achieve, and so does Andor.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most of the rest of what we've seen, both from Marvel and from Disney, and from Lucasfilm, has not been focused in that way. With the Andor being the only exception to that, really, I would argue.
Right.
Acolyte season 1 actually had a little bit of that as well, and we liked that show mostly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we won't see a season 2, so that's bullshit. But whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Other than that, just quickly on the rest of Andor stuff. Orson Krennic will be back, obviously played by Ben Mendelsohn. So kind of a bit of a whole reunion of all the characters from Rogue One, which is great because Rogue One's a really fun Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on. We should also remind folks that the Mandalorian movie is set for release in 2026. We got a little bit of news about this. Apparently, it's already been shot, so it's kind of like sitting in the chamber waiting to be shot out the barrel, not shot.
Gotcha.
Get it. That's my bad.
Are they editing it, or is it like done?
The implication seems to be it's like pretty done. I'm wondering if they're still making tweaks based on like fan reaction and stuff and like how other things are going. I only say that because of how reactionary Lucasfilm seems to be as of late. Right?
Yeah.
Just anyway, we'll get into that. There's hints that it might be a trilogy, or there might be more in that same kind of Mandoverse films. This is from Giancarlo Esposito. He was kind of saying that he's like, well, I get the sense that it's gonna kind of coalesce into like more movies and like this big final moment and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of thought that maybe this movie would be that. So it's hard to say for sure. Maybe not. It's too early to say. And I'm sure it'll depend on how well it's received. Part of the reason that this is all a question mark in the first place is because season 4 of Mandalorian was reworked into this movie due to negative reception of season 3. So they're trying something different here, and if it doesn't work, I don't know. I don't even know what's going to happen at that point. This news led to a story by THR, which is almost old hat at this point, called "Is Disney Bad at Star Wars?" An analysis.
Remind me and some of the other audience members who THR is.
Oh, THR is the Hollywood Reporter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just a Hollywood rag. They're I'd say pretty good at pretty balanced reporting, though it's like they put out so many stories every single day, and there's a lot of like anonymous sources and stuff like that it's like it's hard to tell what's an actual leak or what's something that's like actual reporting, journalism, quote unquote. But But anyway, it's a whole thing. I would say that in general, I would say that the stuff coming out of THR recently about Star Wars has had a more negative lean.
Okay.
So Is Disney Bad at Star Wars? An analysis is written by James Hibbard. He's a longtime THR reporter, writer.
Okay.
And I think one of their better ones. And so that was from October 3rd. So it's almost, it's a month old at this point, over a month old.
Right.
Since this article was written, and I would encourage people to go read it, there's been more kind of bad press since then.
Mm-hmm.
There is a new article, and we'll get to this in a moment, but there's a new article from THR. In fact, we have 3 in this podcast alone. We have, Is Disney Bad at Star Wars? The analysis, by the way, by James is that kind of. The answer is like kind of, yeah. they're bad at movies, but their shows the TV side seems to be a little bit more insulated from that, right. Which is reiterated later. The more recent news, Simon Kinberg is to write and produce a Star Wars trilogy. That was a story broken by THR last week. Quote, Kinberg already has strong Star Wars ties. He co-created the animated series Star Wars Rebels with Dave Filoni. He also helped launch the Star Wars after Disney bought Lucasfilm, acting as a consultant on 2015's Force Awakens. Otherwise, though, I would say Simon Kinberg's production, like his track record in Hollywood, is spotty. There's a lot of bad X-Men movies in there. Although Logan is also in there, so take that for what it's worth. From
Logan was
side.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, he wasn't the creative drive behind that necessarily.
Gotcha.
He was involved, but anyway, that is to say that there's news that there's a new trilogy in the works, which is like, stop me now if you've heard this one before.
Yeah.
And I've seen Star Wars creators that I like, Eckhart's Ladder, for instance, on YouTube. He basically saw this news. He's like, I don't even give a shit about this news. It's like, wake me up when like one of these movies actually comes out, because we've had story after story after story of these movies being in development and then nothing happening. Right?
And then nothing happening. Yeah, exactly.
Or worse, it's one thing to like ghost me on like the news of a movie, right? It's another thing, which is what they did with the Rian Johnson trilogy forever. It was like, yeah, it's still in the works, and then we hear nothing for like years, and then it'd be like, oh yeah, actually it's on hold until after he's done with his Knives Out movies or whatever.
Right.
So,
yeah.
That's happening. That ties into the bigger story here, but just a couple more little bits and bobs. Disney reportedly made $1 billion from Star Wars merch in 2023, or over $1 billion. So obviously the franchise isn't like in the worst shape,
Yeah, I would say people are still, if they're still buying your merch, you're doing all right. So
the merch is good. I think if we're being honest, merch is maybe some of the best stuff that they've got going.
Now, in terms of merch, does that mean? That means everything. That means figures, shirts, like it's anything.
Those
Star Wars
Band-Aids that have like Baby Yoda on them. Yeah.
Yeah, like Christmas ornaments, books, all that
everything. Yeah,
crap.
everything.
Anything that's like Star Wars, whatever, linked. Yeah. I am a culprit to that $1 billion.
It's okay. I mean, so am I. I mean, there's no shame in that.
Every time Joe Fresh right now has a collab with Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
and they keep coming out with real cute baby stuff, so I buy it all.
Interesting.
For my kid.
Superstore.
It's adorable. Yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy. I got on this little green Star Wars printed like tracksuit. It's so cute. It's like sweatsuit material. It has a little like TIE fighters and X-wings and whatever all over it. It's so cute.
Okay, nice. Is there cool merch. Adult stuff?
See, that's the thing. There's some. I did get one Christmas, like an ugly Christmas sweater with Grogu on it.
That's cool.
But there's no women's stuff. If you're listening,
it's all
Joe
unisex.
Fresh. It's all in the men's section.
That's all men's stuff.
It's baby boy stuff, like boy stuff. Some girl stuff. Not
I don't
much,
know if you heard. I don't know if you heard, Rachel, but Star Wars is for boys. I don't know if you've heard that.
Yeah,
you might have heard that a lot on Twitter before we quit that app. But there was a lot of that.
I know.
It was like, oh, you guys don't understand. The reason that Star Wars is dead, obviously not with $1 billion in merch, but whatever.
Right, yeah.
The reason Star Wars is dead, this is me doing like my best troll impression, is because they keep trying to sell Star Wars to girls, and it's obviously a boys' product, obviously.
Okay.
And
Love
like
that.
this is like this like a gender essentialism stuff that I see on Twitter all the time. It's crazy. So
I just love it because those are the type of men that are like, why can't I find a girl? It's like, because you just keep being like, hot girl likes the same thing as me. Fuck her. Just like, she's brutal.
Well, yes, he'd
get
like
out
to.
of here.
Yeah, he'd like to, but it's
like,
not working out.
Yeah, just get out of my thing. It's like, okay, cool. You could just like talk
or
to
make
women
space
nicely.
or make space in your thing for women and all of it. It's amazing how what you could. Anyway, it's this whole thing,
right? I know.
Oh, well, the other thing I should mention, since we're talking about Blue Sky for a bit, I am looking for a few guest hosts. So if there are people on Blue Sky who are like, I like talking about Star Wars, we wouldn't mind maybe expanding the guest host chair occasionally. So
yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, especially if more women, I think, would be helpful.
New friends.
I do a lot of talking, which I'm sure people notice. But I would be happy to expand the seating here and make more room for more female voices in Star Wars, especially. So.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean
friends.
That doesn't mean that I hate dudes or whatever that people get angry about. It's just
everyone is welcome.
I don't know if you heard, but DEI is dead, Rachel. That's a whole thing.
What?
Never mind. I'm spouting things that I see on Twitter that are like clearly toxic. I should just never mention them.
I am not. Yeah, I don't even.
Diversity and inclusion.
Oh God.
Yeah. Okay. Where was I? Okay, Disney made $1 billion. Skeleton Cruise next month. Look forward to that. Any thoughts on the trailers or the early footage we've seen?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how to feel about it yet. I can't tell what the tone is going to be of it.
It seems like it's all over the place, doesn't it?
It feels like, when you're first kind of watching, you're like, okay, it's kind of like an adolescent show,
it's got that
like
Spielberg
maybe targeting,
vibe, right? That like
like Goonies,
mm-hmm.
Exactly. So it's just like I'm not too sure what the tone is. So I'm not saying that I'm not gonna like something that's made more for kids or young adults or whatever, but we'll see. Yeah.
There's a lot of really solid YA stuff in Star Wars, actually.
Yeah.
But this seems like it's not really YA. This is like more This is more like. It at least stars more kids, but it also stars Jude Law, and I love Jude Law.
Yeah, I'm excited about. I love Jude Law too. He's so good. So
he's so
that's
cool.
what I mean. I just feel like Jude Law wouldn't necessarily be part of something that was terrible. So I don't know. I mean, it could be wrong.
I don't know if that's entirely true. We could go look. We could go look up his IMDb right now. I'm sure it's not spotless.
That's true.
Yeah.
He is dreamy though. So there's.
I mean, some people really like those Sherlock Holmes movies. Where he's Watson. I'm one of those people. I love those movies. Some people hate them and think they're really dumb and stupid, and I understand where that sentiment comes from. I truly do, but I think they're
supposed to be kind of like quirky and goofy and like Yeah, exactly. That's
it's Robert Downey Jr. at the height of his powers doing
exactly.
Sherlock with that kind of like not great British accent. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love those movies.
It feels like Tony Stark pretending to be Sherlock Holmes.
It does.
But,
it definitely does. Yeah. Okay. Speaking of another movie that feels like RDJ pretending to be Tony Stark, I watched Chef recently.
Oh, Chef is good.
It's really good. I watched it on the plane here. I loved it. It's like
the movie you're talking about.
Yeah. It's quickly become one of my favorite.
It's very
movies
good.
Ever.
Funny timing. We have a Cubano sandwich at work right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They make that. They make those Cubanos look so fucking good in that movie.
Yeah.
I love. Listen, I would never be a chef, but I love the idea. Like chef culture is really cool to me. It's why I love The Bear, Chef, others, etc. But
I mean, you and I have both been like adjacent to that lifestyle for me, especially for my entire adult career. So it's it's like I feel like when you watch those movies, you're like, oh, I've met that guy. Like I've met that character
there's
in real life.
That person is it. They really turns out it's self-selecting that group of people.
Yeah.
They kind of be similar for a reason. I have a lot of friends who are like really good, like high-end chefs, especially from Cayman. That
of course,
I just think it's so cool. It gave me a new appreciation for knives, like not the movie, but just friends
in general, and having good knives,
having a good knife. when I got to Costa Rica, I mean, we had some knives here. We had no knife sharpener, and the knives were so dull and crappy, and I hated them. So when parents came down, I was like, you have to bring a knife. Like, we need a real chef's knife, because like I couldn't cut through things that are soft. Like, I couldn't cut through fish.
Yeah.
So it was like,
that's bad.
You know, like you're squishing it, and it's like, anyway. So a really good knife. That's pro tip. Get yourself a good knife.
Yes.
And a knife stays with the chef. It's not with the restaurant. You buy a knife, you keep it with yourself.
Yeah, they keep them wrapped up. They all have their own knives. It's very
It's cool. I love a good knife. Wusthof. That's
Same.
a good German brand. I'm a big fan of. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. And the Skeleton Crew, I'm really much like, I need to see this, like, a full episode or maybe a couple episodes before I draw any conclusions. I feel like it has the potential to be pretty cool, but I also feel like it has the potential to be really stupid and like not engaging.
Yeah.
So I'm holding judgment on that. Okay, quickly, a couple more stories. Ewan McGregor says they're exploring ideas for Obi-Wan Season 2. This is like a feel-good story. This is like something that Ewan McGregor would say if you like stopped him on the street and asked him, like, hey, is Season 2 of Obi-Wan coming? And he'd be like, yeah. It's like that time that someone almost hit him on the street and in a car. He's like, and he looks at him. He's like, oh my God, it's Obi-Wan. So it's like that. But he said that he'd like to wear the Clone Wars armor, and he wants to do more flashbacks with Hayden Christensen. So,
I would also love that. That would be great.
Yeah. So exactly, it's like no notes. You should do that. Carry on. Which I always felt like Season 1 should have been like that, or more included more of that. I remember talking about this early on, maybe even with you. It was like, how cool would it be if it was just like Obi-Wan grappling with his past, lots of flashbacks, spending lots of time exploring even some things we've maybe even seen in animation before, like the duel with Maul or those types of things. And getting to see that with Ewan McGregor, I think would have been interesting. So there's still potential for that. We'll see. More Maul, though, would be cool,
Live action?
Yeah.
But do you bring in Ray Park?
If you could. Or is he canceled?
He's
canceled, right?
He's a little... I have him on social media, and every once in a while, he goes a little off the wall and, will lash out at fans.
Yeah, he's a weird guy.
He'll, post screenshots of people's, real names and stuff that are in his DMs.
Too? It's the guy who voices.
It's not him.
No, it's another guy. It's the guy who does his voice in animation and who has always done his voice basically.
Yeah.
He's also a little bit weird, so it's it's important that they have that brothership,
Yeah, I just feel like he's not getting invited to as many things these days.
He came to. He was invited to. I feel like he was at one of the Winnipeg Comic-Cons recent.
Maybe not. He wasn't at the most recent.
Not the most recent, like a year or two ago. Yeah,
a couple of years. Yeah, I just feel like he's getting a little unhinged more and more. But who knows? I feel maybe he'll rein things in.
All these actors, as they get older, just become more slightly unhinged.
Yeah,
there's exceptions to that, but it does. Anyway, I mean, do you need Ray Park?
No, probably
preferably
not.
Yes, but you don't need him, especially if he's not doing the voice. I mean. The way he moves is very unique, but I feel like you could find someone who could mimic that if you need.
That's true,
right?
Yeah, I'm not too sure how Disney feels about him these days.
Or maybe they just do an entirely animated version of him, right? You could probably do that.
Yeah,
now,
I mean, with makeup and everything, it's you don't really need. You know what I mean? It can be anybody at this point. It's as long as they have that earring.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the spiky things on their head. Okay, so. We'll put a pin in that. Who knows if Kenobi Season 2 will even happen or when it'll happen, but it's a nice thing to think about. Okay, so that brings us to the main story. We talked about Simon Kinberg. He's now in the mix. I'll quickly go over a list of all of the Star Wars projects we know are in development. Let's see if I can quickly find it. Here we go. So we have Simon Kinberg's Star Wars trilogy, Mandalorian and Grogu, set for 2026. The New Jedi Order. This was the Rey movie that was in production before we found out about the Simon Kinberg thing. James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi movie. This is the original Jedi story. The Lando Star Wars show, I think. Dave Filoni's Star Wars movie, which is again not the Mandalorian Grogu movie, but the what's it called? The Empire movie, that the Return of the Empire movie, which is, what the hell is that called? The Thrawn trilogy.
Heir to the Empire.
Heir to the Empire. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of in development as well. Taika Waititi's movie, which the most recent news on that is that it's indefinitely on hold, which means it's not canceled.
Yeah,
I mean, whatever. It's like the same as Rogue Squadron, which was Patty Jenkins' movie. Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy, also on indefinite hold. And then Sean Levy's Star Wars movie, but there's a writer there, but we don't know really anything else. So we add Simon Kinberg into the mix, and that's how we get this story from THR. Again, sorry, maybe I'll just read name the whole thing. The Hollywood Reporter. It is. This is the wrong article. Let me just quickly pull this up here. It is called Star Wars Movies Race for Rey and the Future of the Franchise on the Big Screen by Boris Kitt, senior film writer at THR. The scavenger turned Jedi, played by Daisy Ridley, in the last 3 episode movies, is key to the space opera's next turn. So the main takeaway from this article is that Rey is like a hot commodity at Lucasfilm. Everyone wants to use this character. And the reason for that, and I'm kind of like paraphrasing a few things. I've got quotes from here that I want to read. But the reason for that is essentially creatives think that, and the exact quote I think is, the cupboards are bare. That Disney Lucasfilm has done a bad job of creating and sustaining new characters since they bought Lucasfilm. And, that they've leaned heavily on the classic characters, right? The Lukes, the Hans, the Leias, etc. The Boba Fett's. And a lot of those stories are now wrapped up. Although we should bring back, come on, let's bring Tamora Morrison back. There's more Boba Fett stories to tell. Let's not be crazy here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's all to say that there's just not a lot of characters that people are chomping at the bit that they want to tell stories about. Rey is really the only exception to that. And I'm wondering if they're like, well, Ben is dead, so we can't really. He would have been one of them, but they killed him in the last movie.
Oh,
so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we were talking about that today, actually, Adam, my husband, and I, because it's, he was just saying, because, again, we were talking about, because I was like, I'm going to podcast today, yada, yada. But he was saying that it's obviously unfortunate that they killed Kylo, because he's such a, cool character, and it's definitely a character that they could have used and done more with. He's just they never should have killed him or whatever. He's like, I'm sure a lot of people feel like they should have killed Rey instead. He's more usable or whatever, but it's, yeah. And I was like, well, there's a certain group that would think that. But
he could come back as a Force ghost still.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, Obi-Wan as a Force ghost in Empire is very busy. He's doing a lot.
He's doing tons of stuff. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So there's lots of room for that, I suppose. Is the question, I guess, maybe would be, is Adam Driver open to coming back to Star Wars?
Right.
Maybe.
Man, everything he does is so good. Everything he does.
He's just a really good actor. I wouldn't say everything he does is good. I don't know if you saw Megalopolis. That movie's fucking weird.
I have not seen it. I get maybe just because I just rewatched Black Klansman recently. He's just so good in that movie. But have you ever watched that movie?
Yes, I have. That was nominated for an Oscar.
Was it? Okay, yeah.
I don't know for sure, but it was. Yeah, that is a great movie. There's very few movies that I've seen Adam Driver in that I thought, no, I don't care for it. He's a weird looking dude, but
I don't know, but he's weirdly handsome. Charm. There's something about him. There's something about him that makes him really handsome.
His
long that heist
nose.
movie that he does is really good too. Logan Lucky.
Yes, that is such Daniel Craig in that. Oh my god, that movie is so freaking good. It's so it's absolutely underrated.
Yeah,
a heist movie with the Daytona 500 or whatever. It's like, what a brilliant idea. It very much in line with the Justified stuff of like the Southern accents and stuff. It's fun, like hillbilly stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
Stuff.
so So again, where were we? The THR report. They're talking about Rey being this like really important part of the franchise. So here's a couple of quotes. Since the November 7 reveal that Simon Kinberg has signed on to develop and write and produce a new Star Wars trilogy for Lucasfilm and Disney, the debate has focused on whether or not it would be a continuation of the so-called 9-film Skywalker saga, tying it into the legacy of Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and storylines first laid out by George Lucas in 1977. The reason for the debate is that the new hoped-for trilogy would feature Rey in some form or fashion. Now, I think it's important to note here, when a week ago the story came out that Simon Kinberg was going to write and direct a new trilogy, you can actually go find it. It's in the article from THR that says it's not an continuation of the Skywalker saga. But even when that story dropped, there was already people online saying, I don't think that's true. I heard that they do want to potentially continue this Star Wars. Like even a week ago when they were like trying to be more definitive about it, it was already up in the air. And now we have this new article, which is like openly talking about the discord in Lucasfilm around the use of this character.
Right.
It's crazy. So, and maybe we're not supposed to know this much stuff, but like to me, this is all signs of an unhealthy creative process. So, I think it's, lots of things happen or are talked about and they never happen. Most things in Hollywood never happen. It's a line from a podcast I listen to all the time. But Jeff Kanata on the Filmcast guys. So most things never happen. So this kind of stuff I get. That being said, they put themselves in this position by constantly announcing these things. So of course we're going to be curious about it. If they never told us and these things, then they're like, okay, this movie's in production now. Okay. That I think people would feel a little differently, but it's like fool me once, I think I tweeted out was like fool me a million times. It's like shame on you still.
Literally. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like it just gets disheartening after a while, and then people just stop listening. So it's way more interesting when you're like, hey, we're actually doing this now.
Totally.
Here's a date that is gonna come out. It's not just like, oh, this is on the docket maybe. So
on the bright side, most people don't pay attention to this stuff. So it is a small minority of diehard fans that pay attention to every little bit of news about the future projects and stuff. But so largely speaking, and that they really want to capture more of that like mainstream audience, if I can use that term. And most of those people don't pay attention to this stuff. So that's like it insulates them. But we want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. So. Debate internally about whether they want to continue the Skywalker saga or start something new. Let me just say definitively right now, I don't want more Skywalker saga, something else, please. It can have Rey in it, but it does not have to be episode 10. It's crazy.
No, like you can do something different. Tell another story. Like
reeks of desperation, doesn't it? Like it just like, we can't get things off the ground. What do we know that people like? The ones that say episode in the title. Let's get those out. Like oh my God, like it's like, and I will say this: there's one small sliver of positivity, which is that they're thinking about it in trilogies, 3 movies at a time, which is what they did not do with the sequel trilogy, which is why we ended up with that very rocky, inconsistent storytelling that we got. That I think everyone, whether they noticed it like intentionally or not, affected people's enjoyment of those movies. It's like it's all over the place, and it's not a good way to develop a trilogy, obviously.
But see, this is hard for me too, though, because my only issue with like announcing that something is a trilogy is, are you just going to cancel it if the first one
absolutely.
doesn't do well? Like the trolls come out. So it's like, I don't want to watch part of a story if I'm not going to get to finish that story. If like you guys think that either if you're announcing it as a trilogy, stick with it, even if the trolls come out in droves.
Yes, I think
like, and we've said this before, but it's just such a piss off to people who casually watch, to people who don't hate watch, to people who like, maybe don't just have like strong opinions, right? It's just such a piss off for them to never get to, not never, but to not get the ending of these stories that you give us a part of, because you're like, oh, well, too many people on, the old Bird app are pissed off, so I guess we can't make the rest of them.
Yeah, I mean, as we've said over and over and over again, you have to have the courage of your convictions. Like you're gonna make a decision,
stick with it.
Stick with it, because guess what? As we talked, like everyone hated the prequel trilogy, and now everyone loves it now because it lasted, because it endured long enough. It survived. If you can create something of value, whether it's universally loved today, is up for debate. I mean, I think part of the reason that it needs to be successful, quote unquote, financially for them to continue it, but it's like maybe you don't put all your eggs in one basket. One of the things the movies don't have to cost $300 million, $400, $500 million a piece.
No,
you can make less expensive Star Wars projects that don't need to be billion-dollar movie successes.
Right.
So I mean, there's lots of ways they can mitigate this. I think that they feel like they need to make, like, Star Wars on the big screen needs to be big and flashy, and I get that. But I just beg them to, like, start character focused first, story focused first, and just work backwards from there. So
yeah, well, and like, could you imagine, say, if the prequels came out now and like the first movie in that trilogy dropped, and people obviously probably would hate it now, and then just them leaving it and just being like, oh, we're not gonna do the other ones, and then you don't get episode 3, you don't get the Duels of the Fates,
it's
you
crazy,
don't like get Obi-Wan and Anakin on Mustafar. Like, can you imagine that not happening?
Yeah,
and that's kind of what we're getting at this point, where you just cancel things right away.
To be fair, it was a different time because Lucasfilm was the largest independent film producer, like studio in Hollywood, right? It was wholly owned by George Lucas.
And he was like, I'm going
to make these movies. I don't give a shit what people think. He's like, I'm going to put Jar Jar Binks in here. People are going to love it. And everyone's like, boo, Jar Jar Binks sucks. And turns out people were right about that. But like a lot of the other stuff, they were wrong and he was right. And boy, is his pressure now.
Like, stick with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Stick with it.
Under Disney, it's like, oh no, they don't have that freedom.
No.
They have to commit to. It has to be successful.
Yes.
But this is why they get this cold feet situation. It's like, well, this negative reaction is this, and like I feel like they're constantly second guessing themselves, and it's not helping. So it says, quote, this is a quote from an anonymous person, not just from the source, not just from the article. To make standalone movies or continuing the Skywalker saga in any form is a fundamental question the company faces as it tries to move forward. And this should be surprising to most people who have been paying attention to Star Wars for a while, because it was very clear, then they said so, like their own words, that they were done with the Skywalker saga. Episode 9 was the end of it. Yeah. We're moving on to new stories, that kind of thing. And now it's like, oh, they had Acolyte didn't work, so we gotta quick, someone rev up the episode machine. We need episode 10. It's like, oh my god! It just reeks of people in suits at the producer level who I think fundamentally don't understand this franchise. And this is the I think my tweet, or I want to call them tweets because it's such an indelible word. But
I know.
So I don't want to call them posts because it's lame. Anything you can post on anything. They should just like Twitter's gone. They should just steal that. Like, can Blue Sky just steal that word? People still say tweet all the time. They threw that away in the garbage. They're like, who needs that? Like frisbee like branding, and throw that away. Tupperware is going out of business, but people are going to still continue calling, stuff they put leftovers in Tupperware. Right?
There's a word for that. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like Velcro, Tupperware,
exactly.
Kleenex.
Right.
Yeah.
They had that. Twitter had one of those, and they threw to the garbage. Anyway.
Yep.
I'm not going to get upset about that anymore. But so one of the biggest quotes in this that I think is, and I'm going to skip to the bottom of my notes here. I'll come back up to more of this later, but I bolded it and like increased its size of the text font to 13, because it says Star Wars, and this is another source familiar with the process, is more business-minded, noting, quote, Star Wars is a nostalgia-based enterprise, and they are running out of ways to create nostalgia. And what I tweeted was, sound the fucking alarms, because if that's the case, you might as well just shut it all down right now, because that's not, it's a complete and utter misunderstanding of what Star Wars even is.
Exactly.
it's, I mean, it can be that, but like when you make it only that, it loses so much value in any of its original storytelling. When you lean so heavily into nostalgia that and kind of like hit on that like endorphin rush that people get from being like, I recognize that, the member berries, you know, of it all.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It like numbs people to original storytelling. I genuinely feel like I sometimes catch myself feeling that way, right? You know, would I watch The Penguin if it wasn't related to the Batman stuff? I don't know if that counts as nostalgia, but like, I don't. The answer's probably no. Like, I don't know. But I will say this: Star Wars was not originally a nostalgia-based enterprise. It wasn't a nostalgia-based enterprise for like 40 fucking years. So if if that's all it is now, that's a you problem. You made that problem. And like, so now you have to dig yourself out of it. It's crazy. I'm sorry. I'm all upset
it's
now.
crazy. It's crazy to say that you can't have new stories or new stories won't do well because it's all nostalgia based when it's like, it was never, exactly. It was never rooted in that to begin with. But I think there's so much room for really cool, fun stories. I want, like I said, I want more bad guy stories. I want more like Sith stories and like that kind of thing.
Well,
There's
that's
so
what the
much room
Acolyte was
for
supposed
that.
to be. And you know what? Here's again,
I know.
not to tie everything back to the Penguin, but one of the things that's so cool about the Penguin is that he's a bad dude, and there's no like, you know, no spoilers for it, but like, the show is not trying to be like, isn't it interesting how this villain is also maybe a good guy? You know, like,
right.
Which I think we see all the time, you know.
All the time,
knock on the door of Sony Pictures and tell them to shut it down over at all their fucking Spider-Man fucking spin-offs where like Kraven is not a...
Kraven?
Like, you know, Venom. Oh my God. Venom was at a rave in the second Venom movie. He's literally dancing with glow sticks in the second.
I love it.
He's not...
I like the Venom movies.
Listen,
I'm sorry.
I get they're wacky and weird, and it's like they're not for everybody, and they're certainly not for me. And it's like I don't get it. But like the Kraven movie, the Morbius movie, like these like those characters they're villains. They're villains. They're not supposed. They're not. They can't all be anti-heroes. And you know, I get it. That's a more traditional form of storytelling. It's not as satisfying to tell a story about a bad person who does bad things and is just and that's just what it is. But it can also be compelling. It's interesting.
Yeah. I feel like you can tell the other side of things without it having to be like, oh, they're not bad. Like things still be bad, and it's still interesting and cool to like see the other side of things, see the bad side of things.
There can be nuance on the bad side.
The good guy underneath, like no, they can be bad, but you can show like how they turn that way. Like what are the motivations behind it? Like all that kind of stuff is like very interesting to see. It's why people are so fascinated with like serial killers. It's the same thing. No one thinks those serial killers are good guys. You know what we should do? But true crime is so fascinating.
Let's do a Star Wars
why not
true
take that
crime.
into Star Wars?
Let's do a Star Wars true crime series. It's set on Coruscant. You know, we've got a Sith serial killer on the loose. It's in the High Republic era.
There we go.
You know,
I want
it's
kind
of like what the Acolyte was, actually, now that I think about it.
Kind of. It honestly kind of was. It started out that way.
I mean, but again, missed opportunities. I think there's a couple things going on. A lack of trust in the audience that they can tell stories that are more complex than I think they've been telling, and trusting the audience that they can handle that.
That's the thing. Just because it's Disney or owned by Disney doesn't mean it has to be, you know,
for babies. Yeah,
exactly. It's like, Disney movies are great. Like, you know, I love whatever, Lilo and Stitch and those things, but everything doesn't have to be sunshine and rainbows and for kids.
Well, I'm not even saying that that's what it is. I'm not even saying like it has to be for kids. Like there can be, you can tell, Obi-Wan's not for kids, you know,
I
wouldn't
not.
say, or, you know, there's kids in it. But like, trust that I can like track multiple characters and multiple timelines or you know, like tell complex stories, character-driven stories that have nuance. That's okay. I know it's an opera and so things are larger than life, but that doesn't mean that
and if you can there's so many talented people within this realm, right? And it's like I'm sure you guys can get all together and make stories and characters that we care about that are new. Like
we know that they can do that.
I mean?
We've seen it with Andor, for fuck's sakes. It's like
Exactly.
Someone should just drop the fucking script for Andor on the fucking table and say, can someone try to do this again? Like, not this again, the same thing, obviously, but you know what I mean? Like,
but
hey, see how this is good and people like it? Let's try that. You know?
Yeah.
Again, that's reductive. I get it, but still. Okay, so there's more in this story. So Kingberg's trilogy is in story development, so it's very early on. So he's pitched a trilogy story. But it sounds like it could be on a collision course, quote, with the Rey standalone movie that is actively in the works with director Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. So in that movie, which has gone through churning through writers, is looking for a new writer right now. Because if it hadn't happened, it would likely already be in production, which means that there are people in Star Wars who are fighting over the same characters to use. Which is like, just make new ones, for fuck's sakes. I'm sorry, again, I'm swearing a lot today.
Yeah.
But.
No, but I get it. Because it's frustrating when you're like, okay, so this movie trilogy or whatever, this Rey trilogy has been in development for like so long, switching writers. There's other people who are like, hey, like, I want to write this story. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that I can see how that's super frustrating with people who are trying to be creative and trying to bring stories. But they're like, oh, actually, you can't use that because we might use her in
this
thing that we've said we want to make, but we haven't made yet. It's like, man, like, then just combine these ideas. Like, if they're good ideas.
Here's a response to your exact comment here. Quote, while insiders dispute the notion that there is a battle for Rey, there is definitely internal deliberation within Lucasfilm as to what to do with the heir to Skywalker next. Quote, she is the most valuable cinematic asset, in some ways maybe the only one Star Wars has right now, one source close to the franchise tells THR. According to sources, Rey is set to play a role in several movies that are being developed, although which ones remain unclear. And it seems like if Lucasfilm decides to go forward with this trilogy, it could throw the new Jedi Order movie that Obaid-Chinoy is doing, you know? So... what a mess. If I was her, I'd be like, what the fuck? You know?
Well,
hey, I was working on this movie. It's not my fault we keep firing writers, or maybe it is, I don't know. But now you're gonna, what am I supposed to do with this? Am I supposed to race to beat Simon Kingberg to the pitch meeting? Like, what's going on here? So that's, again, it's disputed, but it still seems like, again, it's obviously messy. And then,
I don't want either of them rushing either, because then it's like you're not putting in that quality of work. Like, you don't want to rush your stories either.
Let's hurry the hell up here. Like, it's been too long.
But
let's get some movies in production, please.
Just make sure it's good, because it's like the last thing Star Wars needs
is
a flop.
Stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's to flop on another female character. Sorry, but like that's like it's. I'd rather not see that, because that just gives more fuel
it would
to the
more ammo.
Shit fire. That is,
we don't talk about
the toxic
we're not
people.
talking about the bird app anymore. It's okay. We're not gonna.
No, but or trauma. But
we talk about the butterfly.
Like, I don't want to see, and it's there's already enough hate for her character out there in those groups, and it's just like I don't want to see that character get brought down.
Well, I will say that
more.
It seems like to me, there are, at least people at Lucasfilm, based on the quotes we're seeing here, that. Regardless of whether people hate Rey or not, they seem to think that she has value.
Yes, which is great.
And which is good. And I would agree with that. I find her a little bit boring. Like, she's of a character.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean she has to stay that way. She had a quote recently about how she's like excited to like return to this character now that she's in like a new part of her life and like bringing those experiences into it and stuff. And I think that's valuable and interesting. I just, she comes off as such a like a cipher and a bit of a little milk toasty in the trilogy.
Milk toasty, yeah. But again, it's not her fault. That is also the flip flopping.
Yeah, I get it.
But
she's what movie is she most interesting in? Episode 8. Okay.
Yeah.
So Disney, this is the last kind of main point to this. Disney Lucasfilm under fire for mishandling the franchise of late, particularly on the big screen. Quote, Star Wars movie development has been under scrutiny for several years, with Lucasfilm head Kathleen Kennedy, who has taken a lot of, it says taking fire. I agree. She has taken a lot of fire. And I think at this point, I'm starting to think rightly so for some things. For not developing meaningful characters beyond those first created by Lucas prior to the sale in Disney in 2012.
Yeah.
What the Kinberg hiring lays bare is that development of movies at the company remains its own unique ecosystem in Hollywood. There are numerous Star Wars movies being developed that overlap characters or timelines. They are not related, but whatever one were to come out first could, in a domino effect, impact the other ones. James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi movie that takes place long before the Skywalkers may be the one exception. They have a note here. Quote, some Lucasfilm directors are aware that of what others are working on, while others are not. For instance, Taika Waititi is working on a Star Wars movie, maybe. Sean Levy is working on a future project in the works, and Donald Glover's Lando idea has moved over development from the TV to the film side of Lucasfilm. And the Rogue Squadron project is still in development as a feature, apparently. Who knows? Okay. It's a different way of development, says another insider familiar with the company. There's so much parallel work going on. What a waste of time and energy that feels like.
Yeah.
It also points to a unique nature of Star Wars to fans, and in this case, and I think this is a pretty good way to close it out here. And in this case, filmmakers and producers, it is not a brand or a franchise, but something akin to a religion. To filmmakers and executives, the first trilogy is the Old Testament. Quote,
right.
You're being asked to create the New Testament, adds one source who worked on a previous movie. Quote, and no one can agree on anything, and there's a lot of second guessing about meanings.
Yeah.
Another source familiar with the process, yada, yada, yada. That's the one, the nostalgia-based enterprise, etc. I would love to know who was the one who was quoted on, they're being asked to create the New Testament, and there's a lot of disagreeing and second guessing. It's nice to hear that somebody who is familiar with like the inner workings of Lucasfilm is able to validate what we've all been saying, which is that they are flip-flopping. They don't have a strong direction and a concept of where they want to go. And again, I think that the buck stops at the head, and the head is Kathleen Kennedy. And I don't want to join the chorus of people saying, because people were calling for her to be fired like day one, which is dumb.
Well,
but
yeah.
At some point, I think it's like, if you keep fumbling this, you got it. It's like pass the ball. Like, you know, you can't. It can't stay in this like cycle of development hell forever. I mean, like the idea, like even, oh my God, Rachel, the idea of like in 2-3 months, there being another story about how one of these projects is now on hold, or there's another project.
I know.
It's like, it gives me just like heartburn just thinking about that. Like, oh God, here we go again, talking about another fucking Star Wars movie that's not happening, or another one that's in development. It's like shit, or get off the pot. Is like, I feel like at this point becoming
it's already at the point where people are just getting pissed off every time they hear about a new thing. They're like, cool, tell me when it's ready.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, it's like, we're at that point, because I don't want to hear about any more new shit until I can see some of this stuff actually come to fruition, because it's just getting exhausting.
Yep. There's not really much else to say. Is any final thoughts on this before we close it out with a fun story to end it?
No, I mean, I'll get excited when it's real, is what I have to say about it.
Agreed. And until then, we'll continue to yell at Lucasfilm through these microphones for them to get their shit together.
Yeah. We're important, guys. Listen to us.
I feel it saddens me, because I remember how excited I was, and like this wasn't that long ago, how excited I was to sit down and like that opening bombing sequence in The Last Jedi, and I was like, wow, this is so fucking awesome. I was gripped by that movie, and I have yet to have that experience in a movie theater since. So I'm like, okay, we were promised more Star Wars. We've gotten it on the small screen. It's cool. It just doesn't. There is something about going to see Star Wars on the big screen that is not being addressed here, and it's starting to frustrate me.
Like I remember getting to watch Mando for the first time, and like when he meets Grogu, and you're like, whoa, and like that excitement. Like I want that again. Like I want, Mando was such a cool character. They did a really good job in that series creating new characters that
and then
we
they got caught up in like feeling like they
got pumped
to be
about.
Part of this bigger universe, and they got lost in the story, the character focused nature of it.
They have the ability to do it, and they have done it. They just kind of gotta, like we said, have more faith in themselves. So
agreed. Okay, on that note, let's finish with what I titled Wild Finish, because I think I saw this story and I thought that is crazy. So it's just a fun little Star Wars anecdote that popped up recently. So this is from Variety Australia, actually. And I'm just going to read like most of this article because it's not that long. It's like 4 paragraphs. Love it or hate it, Star Wars The Phantom Menace is at least universally beloved for its casting of Ewan McGregor as young Obi-Wan Kenobi. But hold up, a recent interview with Star Wars concept and storyboard artist Ian McCaig on StarWars.com to mark The Phantom Menace 25th anniversary, which, by the way, we didn't get the 25th anniversary screenings in Winnipeg, and it's like, those keep not coming here, and it really annoys the crap out of me. And I wrote an angry email once to Cineplex about
the movie
this.
Theater.
Well, yeah, and they're like, well,
they're
actually,
like, we don't decide.
It's not up to us. Yeah, it's not up to us.
You're
okay,
like, who
fine.
is it up to?
Yeah,
forward my email.
Tell me, who do I have to tell me who I need to talk to?
The person who read that email is like, some angry Star Wars nerd is complaining that we
I
don't
have written
get
up. It was like
movies.
included that and a bunch of like, hey, your also your experience sucks, and like, I feel like that's valuable feedback. People want to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, or they don't, but you can't stick your head in the sand forever.
Yeah.
Okay, so to mark the 25th anniversary, yada yada yada. Anyway, reveals that George Lucas was originally planning a bombshell twist for that movie. McGregor's Obi-Wan and Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon were originally swapped, meaning Neeson was playing the real Obi-Wan, and thus the real Obi-Wan died. Is that fucking crazy? Okay, let me continue.
Okay, I'm confused.
Yeah, here's a quote from them. Hold on, let me finish here.
Okay.
And this might clear this up. Quote, for a time, the older Jedi was named Obi-Wan and the younger Jedi was named Qui-Gon, McCaig said. It was very poignant at the end, as Obi-Wan dies and Qui-Gon defeats Darth Maul and stays with his master as he passes away. He not only takes on his master's quest, but he takes on his name. So Qui-Gon becomes Obi-Wan.
Oh.
Isn't that weird? Okay, quote, that's why when you see Alec Guinness in A New Hope, he puts his hood down and goes, Obi-Wan? That's not Obi-Wan. That's not a name I've not heard in a yada yada yada. McCaig added, because he's not Obi-Wan, he's Qui-Gon, and right at the end, George changed it. Isn't that wild? It's kind of cool though, actually. I'm not saying I would have liked it necessarily. I'm just saying like it's certainly bold.
Yeah, definitely bold. I was like, that's wild. Interesting.
And would help, I guess, explain that line, in a weird way, but they went a different way about like Ben. We're gonna go with Obi-Wan the whole time. No one's gonna call him Ben. And then when he, Anyway, I just thought that was so wild. It sounds like, and that's such a classic George Lucas thing to do. Do something like that. Like, right at the last minute. Nah, you know what? Never mind. That's too silly. Let's just leave it as it is. So I'll just read the last little bit here. McGregor was always playing the younger version of Alec Guinness, who originated the role of Obi-Wan in 1977's Star Wars A New Hope. But the character's origins were originally going to be to get a huge shakeup in The Phantom Menace. Having the characters actually be Qui-Gon, adopting the name of his late Jedi mentor, would have been one of the biggest Star Wars reveals in the franchise history. It's true. That would have been a huge twist. Like, maybe that would have helped people be more excited about that movie. I don't know.
So does that mean throughout the whole thing, like even episode 1, then that Liam Neeson would have been called Obi-Wan?
So Liam Neeson would have been Obi-Wan through the first half of episode 1, or the first 3/4 of that movie.
Right. Okay, yes.
And then when he dies, Ewan McGregor, who would have been Qui-Gon, would have taken on the Obi-Wan name.
I see.
And then become Obi-Wan.
I see. Obi-Wan for the rest of the movies. Interesting.
Yeah.
So odd.
Yeah, I know. It's so.
It would have made the action figures really confusing.
Yeah, Lucas changed course before filming. Yeah, it would have been a lot of Obi-Wan in parentheses Qui-Gon.
Qui-Gon in parentheses Obi-Wan.
Yeah, exactly. Hilarious.
Qui-Gon.
Yeah. Oh man. Lucas changed course before filming started. Is the last kind of key line there. I just thought that was so funny. I wanted to include that, and it's a much lighter note to end on.
I like that. That's kooky.
Okay, and we're right on time, so we will wrap it up there. Remember to follow us on Blue Sky. Search for Tower of Babel podcast on Blue Sky. You'll find us there. If you're not sure if it's us, look if it says at towerofbabel.ca. That's how you'll know that it's definitely us. Patreon. Head over to Patreon if you want to help support the show. We'd love it if you did. Rachel needs a new laptop, so we need to boost those subs. We really got to improve the studio setup. Patreon.com/TowerBabbleCast. $5 a month. Next month for the film club, we're going back to the 21st century, a movie from 2000. This is a pick by Jeremy. The Gregory Hoblit film Frequency, which I've never seen, from 2000. So it's a time travel movie. So that should be interesting and fun. Anyway, until then, there'll be plenty of more small screen Star Wars. Again, obviously, Skeleton Crew next month. Until then, there'll be, I think, at least one more episode of the main TOB show with Jeremy and I. I'm trying to line that up with him. He's so hard to schedule with. It's a whole thing. If anyone wants to give him crap on Twitter, please go ahead and do so.
Is he on Twitter?
He is. He doesn't really use it. He might not even see it if he.
Probably not. Like yeah.
Okay. Oh, look, we got some. A follower of ours on Blue Sky sent us some Star Wars related stuff.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, there's something to do with something from May the 4th from last year. I'm sorry, we're right at the end, so I don't want to dive into this right now. I'll make a note that I'll touch on this again.
Is it Patrick Maroney?
Yes, it is, yeah.
It's very funny. It's like he made a little clip of himself promoting the Kentucky Derby, but it's like Star Wars related. It's very cute.
Okay, I'm into it. I'll have to watch that.
Yeah. That's why
cool.
I made the post saying now I really want to go see the Kentucky Derby.
Right. Okay. We need to get a fancy hat. That's very important.
Right? Yeah. I get to wear a fancy hat. I could literally dress like a fancy High Republic Star Wars character.
Like someone from Canto Bight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I could. Yeah.
It looks like he's done other Star Wars spoofs, though. It looks like he's done other stuff, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, Patrick. Thank you for following us. I feel like Patrick's been around for a while, to be honest. His name sounds familiar to me, and I apologize if I'm not remembering stuff.
Well, we're new friends, so
yeah. So anyway, if we're old friends, let's revive that friendship on Blue Sky, the Butterfly app. If we're old friends, if we're new friends, let's make it happen. Also on the Butterfly app. Again, obviously, we're also on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff, Tower Babblecast, all those places. But really, we're really making a drive. We're really going to push make Blue Sky a thing. So I'm trying to make Fetch happen. This time it's going to happen. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Until then, may the Force be with you.